In a Violent Nature is a new experimental slasher film that is told entirely from the POV of the killer, which is something entirely different and fresh on the slasher genre. We follow the Jason Voorhees-like character as he stalks a group of young people through the wilderness and kills them off one by one in ridiculous, brutal ways. This movie is vicious, it's over the top at times, it has some really memorable kills, and it's surprisingly funny. So let's dive into it, and I'm gonna be talking spoilers here because I need to. So the movie opens up with the POV of a grave. It is Johnny's grave. Johnny is our lead character. He's our monster that we're following through this story. And we hear the voices of his soon-to-be victims off screen. They're staying nearby and they find his final resting place with a locket belonging to his mother resting on top. And unbeknownst to them, that locket is the only thing keeping him in the ground. And one of the people takes the locket and unknowingly awakens him from his slumber. And then we watch as he slowly, painstakingly crawls out of the earth and then begins to lumber through the wilderness. As Johnny's walking through the wilderness, he stumbles upon a house where he kills someone in the house, and then he eventually stumbles upon this group of 20-somethings around a campfire where they reveal the dark backside of the area. And we quickly learn the backstory of Johnny. He was a disabled young boy who was essentially bullied by older men, and these men who worked for his father played a prank on him, and unfortunately he died in the process. And Johnny's father went after them and he was killed in that process. And the whole thing unleashed this curse on the area where there was a massacre soon after that. And Johnny, we believe, just wants this locket back. So he's following these group of characters around. The characters themselves are very generic, typical characters you would see in slasher movies. They're a little annoying, but I couldn't wait to watch them get killed. I think that's the point of being in the perspective of the killer. So I was just waiting on edge for how he was going to kill these people one by one. I was not disappointed. I think that it took a little bit of time where he is lumbering around, and I think the pacing of the movie could be an issue for a lot of people because it does feel tedious and drawn out at times, but I feel like that was really helpful at immersing you in the situation, in his shoes. And there's also no score to this movie. Everything is entirely the sounds of the wilderness and the sounds of his heavy footsteps thumping through the forest. So it's kind of monotonous, but it's also unnerving at the same time, and you feel like you're really in this wilderness with the killer. And when he does eventually start killing off these characters one by one, it is a blast to see the creative ways he takes them out. First character to go is the one who actually told the rest of his friends the story of the legend of Johnny and what happened. And he comes up from behind a tree and he wraps something around his mouth. So this part is dissected and we slowly see his face just fall apart, and it's vicious, it's quick, he doesn't take any time to show this person who he is, so it's just ruthless. It's kind of hilarious after that because he's just casually carrying this person's remains back with him to a ranger station, and he uses that person's body to break into the ranger station. And then after that he heads out, he does some more walking around, and we see the next two victims. They're out at the lake and they're kind of having playful banter back and forth with each other, and one decides to swim in the lake and the other one decides to go do yoga somewhere. So we see him put his stuff down and go under the water and kill her, but we don't see him actually killing her, but it's just the tension and the dread where you're just waiting for him to come up on this girl and she has absolutely no idea. He's literally like walking or swimming towards her underwater in this lake, and he comes up from underneath like a shark and kills her. And then we see as her body just floats up to the surface and he casually walks out. And then we make it to the best slasher kill I have ever seen. It was so shocking. And I knew going in that the yoga kill was gonna be great, or at least a lot of people were hyping it up. So he comes upon this girl, she's a yogi, and she's super annoying. Like, this character, I was ready for her to die. And I'm so glad she got the best death in the movie. So he comes up from behind her, she sees him, she tries to run away, but she can't, and he takes a hook and basically pushes it through her lower body, her lower back. And at first I was like, this is it, but no, it keeps going, and he essentially like disembowels her, puts a hook on her head, and pulls her head through her belly. So she's doing like a yoga move. And when it's happening, it's so slow, but it's so brutal and just ridiculous. And I was in a pretty decent sized audience and everybody was reacting to it, which made it even more fun. And we're all laughing because it's just hard not to laugh. It's like, oh my God, what the heck? It's just so fun to see that you can't help but laugh from joy. It's just so cool. And it was all practical effects. And I think I read it took them several months to make that specific kill. And after that, you're kind of like, holy shit, now let's keep it going with the kills. And the kills never really live up to that one after the yoga kill, but I still think they're fun to watch. After the yoga kill, he walks back to the cabin where this group of people is staying, and they're fighting, they're arguing, and one of them throws their car keys out into the trees, and he happens to be there, and he picks the car keys up. And on the car keys is a little toy car keychain, and we slowly see him revert back to being a little kid, and he is sitting behind a tree playing with the toy car. And it was such a sweet, emotional moment where you're just remembering, holy shit, this killer was once a little boy that was just wrongly killed by a group of adult men who were assholes. And just seeing him play with that toy car and be a little kid, and you actually get to see his face, it was just a really sweet moment in the middle of all this brutality. And that moment is quickly swept away once he realizes, okay, these people are still here and I need to kill them. And it's fun to see him kind of use ways to lure out his victims. Like he places, I think, a log on the wheel of a car so the horn starts honking, and one of his victims comes out thinking it's one of his friends and he's ready to fight. And Johnny comes up from behind him to get him. And this person catches him and he pushes him off. And one of the friends in the cabin who has seen him walk by comes out with a gun and he shoots him. They think they're all safe. But as we know, as slasher fans, they're never dead. With at least one shot. You gotta do more than one shot. So as they're getting up, the two people are getting up to run away for safety. Johnny gets up and he throws an axe and it hits a character off screen, but you see the damage after. And he walks up to the other victim who is insufferable, and he picks up a rock and smashes his head. And it is beautiful. Just the way the scene plays out. You're seeing it overhead and blood. Everything is just so cool. It's just so cool to see just how brutal and how much he doesn't care. After he kills the two people at the cabin, he stumbles into the ranger's lodge where his next two victims and the park ranger are. And the park ranger's like, you shouldn't have taken that necklace. That's what was keeping him down there. He's a monster. He'll never stop until he kills us all. And this guy is super confident. His dad defeated him once, so he thinks he's going to be able to defeat him again. So he shoots Johnny. Johnny goes down, and unfortunately they're stupid and they get close to him, and he wakes up, picks the gun up, and all hell breaks loose. He breaks the ranger's back. The other two people escape. He takes the ranger's body, drags it slowly over to a wood chipper, and we slowly watch as he dismembers him. And it's painful to watch because this ranger can't move, and he's literally just watching as Johnny's setting up this wood chipper. So you know he knows his fate and he can't do anything about it. He's helpless, and it's just such a slow process, and it is so scary to watch, and he's not making any screams or anything, so it's just this weird feeling. It was a great kill because you can see just how much Johnny is actually having fun from doing these kills. Like, it's almost like he was getting that guy back for everything he said and how his dad was the one who killed him before. So there's kind of almost like a mentality that he has to things. There's almost a way of thinking, and he's a monster. So the fact that he has that wherewithal to act that way and do this in a kind of like a spiteful way, it was just fun to see and really cool. And eventually he continues stalking through the woods, and we hear the other two characters that he's trying to find, and they're whispering, but they're so loud, and he knows they're there. And they're just like, we have to get to the fire tower and place the locket there. We have to stop this and end this once and for all. And the man tells the girl he's going to distract him so she can get away. He's not going to let anything happen to her. And when he is distracting him, he shows up behind him, like literally inches away from Johnny. And he's like, you son of a bitch, you ugly son of a bitch. And Johnny, rightfully so, kills him. And he just keeps slashing away at him, like for like a good 5 to 10 minutes while our final girl is just sitting there staring, watching it happen. And she smartly puts down the gasoline can, she takes off the locket, places it down, and she books it the fuck out of there. And you're like, yes, go, get the hell out of here, because she's realizing it's not up to her to stop this curse. You can't stop this thing. So she gets out of there. And then the movie does an interesting thing where it flips the POV from Johnny to her. So you're following her as she's going through the woods. And it's so scary because it's so dark. She can't see anything. And she keeps hearing footsteps. And you're like, oh my God, has he caught up with her? And you're just expecting him to come out of nowhere and kill her. And then she makes it out of the woods and she gets into this car by this woman who's driving by. And the whole time you're expecting this woman to reveal that she's related to Johnny somehow, like she's his mom or something, and you're expecting Johnny to come out of the wilderness and kill this girl, but it doesn't happen. And this woman just slowly talks about how she's seen worse things in the wilderness and that the girl's gonna be okay. And she tells the girl this story about how her brother was attacked by a bear once, and she talks about how the bear was just essentially ruthless. They're animals. Sometimes they kill with no reason, and essentially they're just gonna do what animals do. And the whole conversation is very long and drawn out, and initially I was annoyed by it. I was like, what the hell? Like, I was just expecting more of a big finale, but we didn't get that. And after thinking about it, sitting with it, everything the woman was saying, she was describing this creature. He's never going to stop. He's always going to be in the wilderness. He's always going to continue on because that evil never truly dies. And our character, she's looking out into the wilderness because she and we are expecting Johnny to come out of the forest and get her, but it never comes. And just focusing on her, she's always going to have that trauma of what happened to her. She's always going to carry that with her for the rest of her life. She's always going to think Johnny's around there waiting for her. And I really love and appreciate that idea, and that she was traumatized from this event and that trauma is never going to leave her. I do really appreciate what they did. I thought it was weird that they switched the POV, but I'm kind of okay with it after sitting with it for a while. I felt like it was like watching somebody play a video game, like Until Dawn or something. And all of these characters and their interactions, they feel like video games. The dialogue, like everything is melodramatic and kind of over the top, a little bit soapy. And then you watch them get killed one by one. You are the killer, so you want them to die. And it was just a weird feeling to put yourself in those shoes. It's just cool that this is the director's feature debut. Like, are you kidding? What the fuck? So I just love that they spiced up the slasher genre, because the slasher genre isn't one that I'm like super obsessed with. I'm not even a huge Friday the 13th fan. I feel like they're kind of the same after a while, and this one just made it different. It made it fun. I can see why some people wouldn't like it, the pacing, the lack of score, that it's just very silent and methodical, but it worked for me. It really helped put me in his shoes and feel like I was in the wilderness. And just the sounds of his footsteps, man, they start to get to you after a while. This movie is currently in theaters and it's going to be hitting Shudder later this summer. So I personally think that you should see it in the theater, because just feeding off of the other people in the movie was really cool, and it really elevated the experience, because just we were all so in awe of the yoga kill, and to hear everybody making the same noises and just laughing and just like almost like wanting to applaud, it's just such a fun feeling. So I highly recommend checking it out in a theater if you can, but it will be on Shudder later this year. Let me know if you've seen this one, because I am interested to hear your thoughts. I know people are differing. Some people thought it was really boring. Some people absolutely loved it. I think that it's a favorite of mine for the year, so I'm surprised by that. I wasn't even gonna go see it, but my 16-year-old niece asked me if I could take her to see it, and I'm glad I went, because it was awesome. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time.